Thanks for watching this special report here at XM.com. We'll be discussing the rally in oil prices and the potential risks going forward. I'm Maria Pachurdiz, and joining me is senior investment analyst Marios Hadjikyriacos. So Marios, Saudi Arabia and Russia recently cut their oil production, which sent oil prices through the roof. Why did they make this decision, and which nations are at risk?
Hello, Maria. You hit it right on the head. Oil prices have rallied very dramatically. In fact, they are up approximately 25% this quarter. And that came on the back of some supply cuts from Saudi Arabia and Russia. To be specific, they cut their production by 1.3 million barrels a day, which is quite a lot. Now, the reason they did that is because they were concerned about the demand outlook. So these major producers are looking around the world and they're seeing a European economy that is slowing down very quickly, a Chinese economy that is in trouble. So when the demand outlook looks to be worsening, well, they were concerned about a drop in prices. As a result, they tried to counter that by cutting their own supply, and they were extremely successful. As we already mentioned, oil prices have rallied a lot. We've seen a very sharp decline in inventories, which shows you that the market is undersupplied. And another factor arguing the same point is the backwardation that we've seen in futures. So in plain English, traders are willing to pay more for oil contracts that will be delivered in the near term, as opposed to contracts that will be delivered in the longer term. So that shows you that it's a market in a supply deficit, and oil is a little bit more difficult to find these days, essentially. Now, what does that mean for the major economies? Well, rising oil prices are generally bad news for the economies of nations that import most of their oil. So, to be specific, the Eurozone, Japan, those are two major oil importing nations. So what tends to happen, Maria, is when oil prices go higher, their currencies tend to suffer because their trade surpluses are eroded and economic growth takes a hit because the consumer also has to pay for a higher oil price. So if this oil price rally continues, that will probably be bad news for the euro and the Japanese yen.
So what's the longer-term picture for the rally in oil prices? Does it have an expiration date?
Yeah, I think it does. So, look, a shortage of supply got us to this point with oil prices rallying. And that's likely to persist in the near term. So by most estimates, the oil market will remain in a supply deficit for the remainder of the year. And that argues for some further gains in oil prices, especially when you put the depletion in inventories into this calculation. Now, having said that, I think that the longer term picture is not so bright. We've seen American producers already are raising their supply in response to the higher prices. And you have to remember, the US is the largest supplier in the world. The United States oil production is currently near record levels and rising, which suggests that it's going to take some time. But if we see US production going higher and higher, that's going to mitigate the supply cuts from Saudi Arabia and Russia, and it will help to cool oil prices off. Now, there's a secondary risk, of course, and that is, instead of more oil supply coming back to the market, the secondary risk is that the demand outlook truly worsens. So far, we've only seen signs and indications that the major economies are slowing down. But if we see these signs of persistent weakness in demand, that could also be a factor that helps to cool oil prices. So to wrap it all up, Maria, oil prices have risen very sharply, mostly on the back of a supply shortage. And this theme of undersupply will probably continue to dominate in the coming weeks. But longer term, it seems, to me at least, that a return of American supply in particular and softer demand conditions could put the brakes on this rally. So yeah, you could say that this rally might have an expiration date.
Marius, thanks so much. This was a special report here at XM.com.